कृपा सिंधु एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारणे। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. So we see the approach of Mahatma Vidur. He is very directly chastising heavily Dhritarashtra and asking him to wake up now and immediately leave. Of course, he reminded him of how he had plotted and he had done all kinds of injustices to the Pandavas, and now he is like a beggar in their estate. Verse number 27th. Yaswakat parato veha jata nirveda atmavan hriday kritva harim gehat pravrajet sa narottama. So first he talked about a person who is undisturbed, and now he is talking about a person who is Narottama, who is a first-class person. He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or by hearing from others the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. So here, Mahatma Vidur is emphasizing that one should become a first-class man. And how one becomes a first class? When he learns from the experience of others, either by himself or by hearing from others. And about what? About the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. There are three classes of transcendentalists, namely, first, the Dhira, or one who is not disturbed by being away from family association. See the definition of Dhira. One who is not disturbed by being away from family association. Second one, in the renounced order of life, a sannyasi, by frustrated sentiment. And third, a sincere devotee of the Lord who awakens God consciousness by hearing and chanting and leaves home, depending completely on the personality of Godhead who resides in his heart. The idea is that the renounced order of life, after a frustrated life of sentiment in the material world, may be the stepping stone on the path of self-realization. But real perfection of the path of liberation is attained when one is practiced to depend fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who live in everyone's heart as Paramatma. One may live in the darkest jungle alone, out of home, but a steadfast devotee knows very well that he is not alone. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is within him, and he can protect his sincere devotee in any awkward circumstance. One should therefore practice devotional service at home, hearing and chanting the holy name, quality, form, pastimes, entourage, etc., in association with pure devotees, and this practice will help one awaken God consciousness in proportion to one's sincerity of purpose. One who desires material benefit by such devotional activities can never depend. One who desires material benefit by such devotional activities can never depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he sits in everyone's heart. Nor does the Lord give any direction to person who worships him for material gain. Such materialistic devotee may be blessed by the Lord with material benefits, but they cannot reach the stage of the first-class human being, as above mentioned. There are many examples of such sincere devotees in the history of the world, especially in India. and they are our guides on the path of self-realization. Mahatma Vidur is one such great devotee of the Lord, and we should all try to follow in his lotus footsteps for self-realization. Srila Prabhupada is praising, he is glorifying Mahatma Vidur. Atha udicham disham yatu swer ajanatah gatir bhavan hito arvak prayasha kala Samguna guna vikarshana. Please therefore leave for the north immediately, without letting your relatives know, for soon the time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men. One interesting point is that so much confidence Vidurji is having that he is asking Dhritarashtra to cut all his attachment immediately and leave. And he has this confidence that Dhritarashtra will accept. Why Dhritarashtra will accept now? Because his sons have died. One can compensate for a life of frustration by becoming a dhira or leaving home for good without communicating with relatives. And Vidura advised his elder brother to adopt this way without delay, because very quickly the age of Kali was approaching. A conditioned soul is already degraded by material association. And still in the Kali Yuga, the good qualities of a man will deteriorate to the lowest standard. He was advised to leave home before Kali Yuga approached, because the atmosphere which Vidura created by his valuable instruction on the facts of life would fade away due to the influence of the age which was fast approaching. To become an Narottama or a first-class human being, depending completely on the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, is not possible for any ordinary man. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.28 that a person who is completely relieved of all taints of sinful acts can alone depend on the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Very famous verse, 7.28. What is the verse? Manini Mataji?
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी दंडवत प्रणाम याद नहीं है प्रभु जी
Pradeep?
येषं तु अन्तगतं पापं जननं
Yeah.
पुण्यकृतं.
Then te dvandamo. The impediment, the greatest impediment in material existence is the dvanda, the duality, where one is seeking material support or material pleasure. So that can only be achieved when one has come to the platform of being completely freed from all aspects of sin. This is what Prabhupada is mentioning here. Who is completely relieved of all taints of sinful acts, can alone depend on Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Dhritarashtra was advised by Vidura to at least become a dhira. In the beginning, if it was impossible for him to become a sannyasi or an Narottama, persistently endeavoring on the line of self-realization helps a person to rise to the conditions of Narottama from the stage of a dhira. So what is important is persistent endeavor. The effort should be there, the attempt should be there, the aspiration should be there. The dhira stage is attained after prolonged practice of yoga system. But by the grace of Vidura, one can attain this stage immediately simply by willing to adopt the means of dhira stage, which is the preparatory stage for sannyasa. The sannyasa stage is the preparatory stage of Paramhansa, or the first great devotee of the Lord. So what we see in this discussion, what discourse Vidur Maharaj is giving, is that at least one should become a dhira. Where the progression begins, the first step is to become a dhira. And as one becomes a dhira and he aspires or makes persistent endeavor, then he can become Narottama. And from Narottama, he can come to the stage of Paramhansa. So may I ask, what is the stage of being a dhira? Here, Yesterday also we discussed. So who is being termed as Dhira? Who is a Dhira? Because that is the platform from where the spiritual progress or elevation will begin. Below that, one revels in material existence or in a material condition stage. What is the stage of Dhira? What platform one will be considered to be a Dhira? And you should all be able to answer. This is what we have been discussing, hearing from Vidur Maharaj yesterday. Today also he continues. Yes, Madan Sarup Prabhu?
Dhira is the one who is not attached to the family and sense gratification, who can live in a detached stage.
What is that detachment? Here specifically Vidur is specifying what is the detachment.
Detachment is from family, kith and kins.
Yeah. Okay, Dayashil Prabhu.
Ramya will step on.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Dhira is a person who is undisturbed while detached from the family, being remain फैमिली से दूर रहने पर भी वो डिस्टर्ब नहीं होते प्रभु जी.
Yes, very important. That he can be freed from all obligations and he can go to a remote place. That means that he can leave. So when the opportune time comes, he can take one prastha. If one takes one prastha, in simple terms, he is a Dhira. And if one does not accept the order, one prastha means what? Leaving home and going to the forest to perform austerities. So in the 26th verse, in detail, it is being mentioned that who is a Dhira. And Vidurji is again and again bringing that concept. Prabhupada says here, self-realization is obstructed by such undue affection for family, and if anyone is at all able to forget such a relation, he is called undisturbed or Dhira. Usually a man cannot give up the comfortable family life due to his affectionate relation to wife and children, and self-realization is obstructed by such undue affection for family. And if anyone is able to forget such a relation, that means he can sever the relationship. He gives priority to self-realization than to relationship based on skin. Such a person is Dhira. This is what Mahatma Vidur is speaking. So he's saying immediately you proceed towards the north and do not inform anyone. Let anyone not come to know, nor your relatives, nor your kinsman. No one comes to know that you have left. Evam Raja Vidurena Anujena Pragya Chakshur Bodhita Ajamidha Shitva Sweshu Sneha Pasham Dridhameno Nishchakrama Bhartar Sandarshita Dvaha. Thus Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the scion of the family of Ajamidha, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Chitva Sweshu Sneha Pasham Dridhamina. By determination, by resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother Vidura. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great preacher of the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, has stressed the importance of association with sadhu, pure devotees of the Lord. He said, even by a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. What is the verse? Very, very, very popular verse. Even by a moment's association with pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. Yes, there, Shilpra. These all verses, Manoram, you don't know all these verses.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी साधु संग सर्व सिद्ध होए
सर्व शास्त्र को है, सर्व शास्त्र
लव मात्र साधु संग सर्व
सिद्धि होए, लव मात्र साधु संग सर्व सिद्धि होए. Lava is a fraction of a second. I think it is 1/14th. 1/14th part of a second. Even if that much association one has the opportunity, he can achieve all perfection. So this is, we see the effect of sadhu sangha in the life of Dhritarashtra. And Srila Prabhupada says, we are not ashamed to admit that this fact was experienced in our practical life. We were not favored by His divine grace, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. By our first meeting for a few minutes only, it would have been impossible for us to accept this mighty task of describing Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Without seeing him at the opportune moment, we would have become a great business magnate, but never would we have been able to walk the path of liberation and be engaged in the factual service of the Lord under instructions of His divine grace. And here is another practical example. Here it is. In the action of Vidura's association with Dhritarashtra. Maharaj Dhritarashtra was tightly bound in the network of material affinities related to politics, economy, and family attachment. And he did everything in his power to achieve so-called success as his planned projects. But he was frustrated from the beginning to the end, so far as his material activities were concerned. And yet, despite his life of failure, he achieved the greatest of all success in self-realization by the forceful instruction of a sadhu, a pure devotee of the Lord. The scriptures enjoin, therefore, that one should associate with sadhus only, rejecting all other kinds of association. And by doing so, one will have ample opportunity to hear the sadhus who can cut to pieces the bonds of illusory affection in the material world. It is a fact that the material world is a great illusion because everything appears to be tangible reality, but at the next moment evaporates like the dashing foam of the sea or a cloud in the sky. A cloud in the sky undoubtedly appears to be a reality because it rains, and due to rains, so many temporary green things appear. But in the ultimate issue, everything disappears, namely the cloud, rain, and green vegetation, all in due course. But the sky remains, and the varieties of sky or luminaries also remain forever. Similarly, the absolute truth which is compared to the sky remains eternally, and the temporary cloud-like illusion comes and goes away. Foolish living beings are attracted by the temporary cloud, but intelligent men are more concerned with the eternal sky with all its variegatedness. So here the great benefit, the great boon of sadhu sang is being emphasized, and we see in the life of Dhritarashtra that at the fag end of his life, all his life, he was most Krishna unconscious person. And he never performed any devotional service. Rather, he was the number one offender with the pure devotees of Lord Krishna, the Pandavas. But still, by the mercy and the guidance of Mahatma Vidur, he achieved all perfection. Actually, Prabhupada is giving a own example. And Prabhupada is taking a very humble position that he had the opportunity to meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his first meeting changed his life forever. Patim prayantam subalasya putri pativrata cha anuja agama sadhvi Himalayanyasta dan praharsham manasvinam iva satsam samprahar. The gentle and chaste Gandhari, who was the daughter of King Subal of Kandhar, followed her husband, seeing that he was going to the Himalayan mountain, which are the delight of those who have accepted the staff of renounced order. Just as the good lashing from the enemy is the delight of great fighters. Saubalini or Gandhari, daughter of King Subal and wife of King Dhritarashtra, was ideal as a wife devoted to her husband. The Vedic civilization especially prepares chaste and devoted wives, of whom Gandhari is one amongst many mentioned in history. Lakshmi ji Sita Devi was also the daughter of a great king, but she followed her husband, Lord Ramchandra, into the forest. Similarly, as a woman, Gandhari could have remained at home or at father's house, but as a chaste and gentle lady, she followed her husband without consideration. Instructions for the renounced order of life were imparted to Dhritarashtra by Vidura, and Gandhari was by the side of her husband. But she did not ask her to follow him. Because she was at that time fully determined, like a great warrior who faces all kinds of dangers in the battlefield. He was no longer attracted to so-called wife or relatives, and he decided to start alone. But as a chaste lady, Gandhari decided to follow her husband till the last moment. Maharaj Dhritarashtra accepted the order of Vanaprastha, and at this stage, the wife is allowed to remain as a voluntary servitor. But in the sannyas stage, Maharaj Dhritarashtra accepted the order of Vanaprastha. So the same thing that I was saying, the one who becomes a Vanaprastha, at least from there the elevation begins. It's very difficult to get elevation in the family life. But this is the great gift of Lord Chaitanya, and in particular our Acharyas, that they have created opportunities within the family life, within the householder life. They have given the opportunity, one, to progress in Krishna consciousness by giving us the practice of deity worship. Householder life should be centered around deities. If we have deities and we are serving the deities, and we keep deity as the center and as the head of the family, then the family can practice Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, if you see Srimad Bhagavatam, if you study Srimad Bhagavatam, it verily condemns the householder life. Because in the householder life, as Prabhupada was explaining, Vidur Mahatma is explaining, it is not possible to progress in Krishna consciousness. So what is the stage minimum required? Is Vanaprastha. One should come to the stage of Vanaprastha. From there, the journey of Dhira begins. So here, Gandhari, she was not asked, but what does it mean to be a chaste lady? That she will always follow her husband. She was not asked, but she was determined to follow. The chaste lady Gandhari decided to follow her husband till the last moment. Maharaj Dhritarashtra accepted the order of Vanaprastha, and at this stage, the wife is allowed to remain as a voluntary servitor. But in the sannyas stage, no wife can stay with her former husband. A sannyasi is considered to be a dead man civilly, and therefore the wife becomes a civil widow without connection with her former husband. So I have seen some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who were married, both husband and wife, they were Srila Prabhupada's disciple. And then later, Prabhuji became advanced and Srila Prabhupada gave them sannyas order. Particularly, I know of His Holiness Keshav Bharati Swami Maharaj. Maharaj was mentioning to me. Maharaj said that his wife also was a very, very steadfast, very fixed up devotee. And when Maharaj took sannyas, His Holiness Keshav Bharati Maharaj, so she also accepted a life like a sannyasini. Of course, they remained separate. They were not, living together because Maharaj was preaching all over the world, and she also followed in the same footsteps. She also preached all her life and distributed Srila Prabhupada's book. This is what it means to be the chaste wife, is to follow in the footsteps of an ideal husband. So it is not that those who are in Krishna consciousness, if the husband accepts sannyas, then the wife has no shelter or she has no position in the society. Not like that. We have so many sannyasis who had their former wives and they have good position standing in Krishna consciousness. Most of them are very formidable preachers, Matajis. They have written so many books. Narayani Mataji and others, they are all Prabhupada disciple. And they have been distributing Srila Prabhupada's book throughout their life. Maharaj Dhritarashtra did not deny his faithful wife and she followed her husband at her own risk. This is, we will see in Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the constant theme. When Maharaj Prithu will take one prasth and go for self-realization, his good wife Archi will follow. And Srila Prabhupada is giving the example of Sita Devi here. A sannyasi accepts a rod as a sign of the renounced order of life. There are two types of sannyasi. Those who follow the Mayavad philosophy headed by Sripad Sankaracharya accept only one rod, Ekadanda. But those who follow the Vaishnavite philosophy accept three combined rods, three danda. You know the concept? Why one Ekadanda and three danda? Who knows? Both are taking sannyas, but their danda, their rod, is not the same. Manoram, can you explain? It is not that you are hearing for the first time. Are you hearing for the first time?
See, actually, you explained, but that I'm not able to recall three things for three dandas. They sacrifice three things, but I am not able to recall.
And what about the Shankarites? Ekadanda? You know Dayashil bro?
Sir Prabhuji, I don't know.
Should be knowing. What is the Mayavad philosophy? What is the philosophy of Shankaracharya?
Prabhuji, equal between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. Soham.
Soham. So Dandamatra Grahena Naro Narayan Bhavet. Just by accepting the sannyas order, the living entity becomes equal to Narayan. So what they have? Ekadanda. Soham. So they are giving one danda because they believe or their faith is that they have become the Brahman. Then there is no difference between the Supreme Brahman and the living entity Brahman. So their aspiration is to merge and become one. So they have Ekadanda. Whereas the Vaishnava, he has 3 danda. Why? Very simple. Now you can make out. What is the purpose of a Vaishnava taking sannyas?
Totally dedicating himself in the service of the Supreme Lord only.
Yeah. And
Depending
how
upon
is yeah.
he depends upon the Supreme Lord.
Yeah, so how he serves? He serves, he dedicates his mind, his body, his speech. Mansa, Vacha, Karmana. So it is 3 danda. He dedicates himself in the service of the Lord by his body, by his activities, by his mind, by his speech. It is not Soham. His conception is Dasoham. So he takes the position of a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he dedicates his life by his body, by his speech, and by his mind. So he takes the 3 danda sannyas. Clear? The Mayavadi sannyasis are known as Ekdanda Swamis, whereas the Vaishnava sannyasis are known as Tridanda Swamis, or more distinctly, Tridanda Goswamis, in order to be distinguished from the Mayavadi philosophers. The Ekdandi Swamis are mostly found of the Himalayas, but the Vaishnava Swami sannyasis are found of Vrindavan and Puri. The Vaishnava sannyasis are Narottamas, whereas the Mayavadi sannyasis are Dhiras. So Prabhupada is categorizing. Maharaj Dhritarashtra was advised to follow the Dhira because at that stage it was difficult for him to become a Narottama. See how beautifully Prabhupada has presented. Agya Shatru Krita Metro Hutagnir Vipranatva Tilago Bhaumi Rokmehe Griham Pravishto Guru Vandanaya Nacha Pashyat Pitro Saubalam Cha. Maharaj Yudhishthir, whose enemy was never born. The verse is Ajat Shatru. He is Ajat Shatru. Performed his daily morning duties by praying, offering fire, sacrifice, worshipping the sun god, and offering obeisances. Grains, cows, land, offering obeisances. Grains, cows, land, and gold to the Brahmanas. He then entered the palace to pay respects to the elderly. However, he could not find uncle or aunt, the daughter of King Subala. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the most pious king because he personally practiced daily the pious duties for the householders. The householders are required to rise early in the morning, and after bathing, they should offer respects to the deities at home by prayers, by offering fuel in the sacred fire, by giving the Brahmanas in charity, land, cows, grains, gold, etc., and at last offering to the elderly members due respects and obeisances. One who is not prepared to practice injunctions prescribed in the Shastras cannot be a good man simply by book knowledge. Modern householders are practiced to different modes of life, namely to rise late and then take bed tea without any sort of cleanliness and without any purificatory practices as mentioned above. This is modern household. The householder children are taken to practice what the parents practice, and therefore the whole generation glides towards hell. Nothing good can be expected from them unless they associate with sadhus. Like Dhritarashtra, the materialistic person may take lessons from a sadhu like Vidura and thus be cleansed of the effects of modern life. Maharaj Yudhishthir, however, could not find in the palace his 2 uncles, namely Dhritarashtra and Vidura, along with Gandhari, the daughter of King Subala. He was anxious to see them and therefore he asked Sanjay, the private secretary of Dhritarashtra. Oh, so it means that even after, so okay, Sanjay remained, so they remained in Hastinapur, of course. Maharaj Yudhishthir was coronated as the king, and his capital remained Hastinapur. And Sanjay remained to serve Dhritarashtra as his private secretary, as he did in the war. He narrated the entire Bhagavad Gita to Dhritarashtra. Tatra Sanjayam Ashinam Prapricha Udvigo Manasa Gabalgane Kwanastato Vriddohinascha Netrayo. Maharaj Yudhishthir, full of anxieties, turned to Sanjay, who was sitting there, and said, "Oh Sanjay, where is our uncle, who is old and blind?" Va tata vridha. Vridho means who is old. Hinascha netrayo. Hinas means without, and netrayo means the eyes. Ambacha hata putrarta pitravya kwagata sruhet apimavya akrita pragne hata bandhu sa bharyaya ashamshayam manas shamalam gangayam dukhito patat. Where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura and Mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to her son's demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra was also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful. Did he therefore take my offenses very seriously, and along with his wife, drown himself in the Ganges? The Pandavas, especially Maharaj Yudhishthir and Arjuna, anticipated the after effects of the battle of Kurukshetra, and therefore Arjuna declined to execute the fighting. The fight was executed by the will of the Lord, but the effects of family bereavement, as they had thought of them before, had come to be true. Maharaj Yudhishthir was always conscious of the great plight of his uncle Dhritarashtra and aunt Gandhari, and therefore he took all possible care of them in their old age and aggrieved condition. When therefore he could not find his uncle and aunt in the palace, naturally his doubts arose, and he conjectured that they had gone down to the water of the Ganges. He thought himself ungrateful because when the Pandavas were fatherless, Maharaj Dhritarashtra had given them all royal facilities to live, and in return he had killed all Dhritarashtra's sons in the battle of Kurukshetra. As a pious man, Maharaj Yudhishthir took into account all his unavoidable misdeeds, and he never thought of the misdeeds of his uncle and company. See, Prabhupada's presentation, uncle and company. Who is the company of uncle? His wicked sons. Dhritarashtra had suffered the effect of his own misdeeds, and he never thought of the misdeeds of his uncle and company. But Maharaj Yudhishthir was thinking only of his own unavoidable misdeeds. That is the nature of a good man and devotee of the Lord. A devotee never finds faults with others, but tries to find his own and thus rectify them as far as possible. Very high standard if one aspires to be a devotee. He never finds faults with others, but tries to find his own and thus rectify them as far as possible. And if one has this quality, if one comes closer to this quality, he becomes
Dhira?
what is the
Dhira or Vaishnava?
he becomes an Ajat Shatru.
Ajat.
He becomes an Ajat Shatru. Why he is Ajat Shatru? Because he never finds fault in others. So the enmity or the enviousness is coming because one feels that the other is inferior. Maharaj Yudhishthira is addressed here as Ajashatru. How he could be Ajashatru? That means his enemy is never born. One could say, in a true sense, Dhritarashtra's sons, they were all enemies of the Pandavas. They could be the enemy of, they could breed enmity with Yudhishthira Maharaj, but Yudhishthira Maharaj never became an enemy of his enemy. So he's Ajashatru. पितारी उपरते पांडु सर्वान्ना सुहृद शिशून् अरक्षतां व्यसानता पितृक्वागतवोता. When my father Pandu fell down and we were all small children, these two uncles gave us protection from all kind of calamities. They were always our good well-wishers. Alas, where have they gone from here? Suta uvacha kripya sneha vaikalvyat suto viraha karshita atmeshwaram achakshano na pratyahati pidita ati pidita. Suta Goswami said, because of compassion and mental agitation, Sanjay, not having seen his own master, Dhritarashtra was aggrieved and could not properly reply to Maharaj Yudhishthira. Sanjay was the personal assistant of Maharaj Dhritarashtra for a very long time, and thus he had the opportunity to study the life of Dhritarashtra. And when he saw at last that Dhritarashtra had left home without his knowledge, his sorrows had no bound. He was fully compassionate toward Dhritarashtra because in the game of the battle of Kurukshetra, King Dhritarashtra had lost everything, men and money. And at last the king and the queen had to leave home in utter frustration. He studied the situation in his own way because he did not know that the inner vision of Dhritarashtra had been awakened by Vidura, and that therefore he had left home in enthusiastic cheerfulness for a better life after departure from the dark well of home. Unless one is convinced of a better life after renunciation of the present life, one cannot stick to the renounced order of life simply by artificial dress or staying out of the home. Prabhupada gives the principle. Unless one is convinced of a better life after renunciation at the present life, one cannot stick to the renounced order of life simply by artificial dress or staying out of the home. What are the prime examples? That one who is convinced of a better life after renunciation than the present life. What are the examples in our parampara? Shining example. Prabhupada used to very forcibly give these examples. What are the examples? Personalities as examples, shining examples. Yes, Dayashil Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami.
Perfect answer. Perfect answer. She grasps the philosophy very well. This is what it means. Vande Roop Sanatano. Raghu Yugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. Tyaktva Turnamashesha Mandalpati Shrenim Sadatuchava. Who can actually take renunciation or who can be renounced? One is fully enthusiastic and convinced of a better life than the present life. Then only he can take that step forward. Not otherwise. The last verse for today. Vimrijya ashruni panibhyam Vishtabhyam atmanam atmana Ajat Shatrum Pratyuche Prabhu Pandav Anusmaran. Firstly, slowly pacified his mind by intelligence, and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaj Yudhishthir. This is the situation of Sanjay. Okay. So we will hear from Sanjay tomorrow. I'll stop here. Any discussion?
Prabhuji, in the verse number 27,
Okay.
I mean, it's written that sannyasis, point number 2 in the third line, one in the renounced order of life is sannyasi frustrated sentiments. What does it mean?
Yeah. These are those who have had very bitter experiences in this material world. So what they do? They leave everything. And where they go? Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport. Where is their destination?
It is renounced order after frustrated life of
No, not here. I mean, we were continuing that, we were reading it. Where he proceeded, Dhritarashtra, where did he proceed?
He went to Himalayas.
Himalayas, yes. So most of those who are going to Himalayas, they are in this category of frustrated sentiments. From material life, they could not get anything. So they have renounced the material life. Because they could not embrace the material life, so they have renounced it. You have heard
So
that?
in true sense, they are not sannyasis, right?
They are not sannyasis. They are not sannyasis. Why? Because they could not enjoy the material world, so they have left it. Because of the frustrated sentiments. But Prabhupada says, who is an actual one? The third category. Read.
Sincere devotee of the Lord who awakens God's consciousness by hearing and chanting.
Yeah.
And leaves home depending completely on the personality of Godhead.
So both leave, but there is a sea change, a sea difference, a gulf of a difference. This renunciation is based on knowledge. Is based on his experiences. And such a person never looks back. Otherwise, these false sannyasis, the pseudo sannyasis, they create so much disturbance in the society. Whenever they get the opportunity, they create havoc.
Yes.
But very interestingly, Prabhupada is pointing out in the purports that Viduraji did not advise Dhritarashtra the path of Narottama. He advised him the path of Dhira. Why? What is the reason?
Because he wouldn't be able to reach that.
Why? Why he would not be able to reach?
Because he left out of.
No, very important aspect in our practice of Krishna consciousness. Please connect.
Narottama has a firm faith in the Godhead.
Narottama means he is a pure devotee. What is the reason why Dhritarashtra cannot take the position of a Narottama? Even after if Vidurji is advocating. It should not be so difficult.
Because he doesn't have full faith in the God.
You have already said that.
Other than that. He is not renunciate.
No, it's the Krishna conscious point. I'm expecting answers. We should be knowing this. Every day we are reminded of it. Every day.
not coming in the mind, Prabhuji.
Actually, this is my experience. What we don't accept and practice, it does not come, even though it is evident in front of us every day. What is the first Nama Prad?
Guru Ravigya?
No, Guru Ravagya is third Nama Prad. It is not first. What is you don't know the first Nama Prad?
Faith in the holy name? That's the first.
No.
Faith in...
Yes. Ramya and Dayashil Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
So
Krishna.
last devotees who have dedicated their life for the propagation of holy name of the Lord.
And who can be better devotee than the Pandavas? And all his life, Dhritarashtra plotted them. Did such grave injustices and, such offenses towards them. So although he got the shelter of Vidur Maharaj, but he cannot go beyond that Dhira stage. Very important. Okay. Anyone else? We should have discussion on this. Otherwise, this will again remain only in the textbook. It will remain in Srimad Bhagavatam, the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. It will not become a part of our life because we are not participating. We are not allowing this principle to govern us or govern our life. Remaining within the shell that where we are. Normally, when we used to have classes with our teachers, a great amount of discussion and lengthy discussion. And many times question answer session was almost as long as the main session, even longer. I'm not trying to plant questions from your heart, but genuinely nothing is coming. Yes, Manoram Prabhu?
Prabhuji, in comparison to Dhira and Sannyasi, Dhira is considered the superior one. In both the cases,
How it is considered the superior one? Where it is written it is the superior one?
I think he means Narottama.
That is Narottama. Dhira is the stepping, that is the first step. You read the purport again. Prabhupada says that at least one has to come to the Dhira stage. And from Dhira stage, he can come to the stage of Sannyasi or Narottama. And from Sannyasi, he can come to the stage of Paramahansa. You see the purport? So where is the confusion? You are saying high school is higher than graduation. So how can that be?
Prabhuji, actually, maybe my misunderstanding is in Dhira, one is away from the family association.
That is the threshold. That is the beginning stage. You see the purport. 1 second. I'll show you the purport. Prabhupada is speaking here. Yeah, Prabhupada is saying here. Dhritarashtra was advised by Vidura at least to become a Dhira in the beginning. If it was impossible for him to become sannyasi or a Narottama. Can you see the purport?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Very clear. Please hear with a little more attention. I read it twice and I tried to have some discussion here. Important. So first is that one should come at this to the stage of Dhira. This is from where the spiritual progression begins. And then I said it, I repeated it, that persistently endeavoring on the line of self-realization helps a person to rise to the condition of Narottama from the stage of Dhira. The Dhira stage is attained after prolonged practice of the yoga system, but by the grace of Vidura, one can attain this stage immediately simply by willing to adopt the means of a Dhira stage, which is the preparatory stage for sannyas. The sannyas stage is the preparatory stage for Paramahansa, or the first great devotee of the Lord, which is Narottama. Clear? Very clear. And Prabhupada says for everyone else also, those who are even practitioner or aspirant, to come to the Dhira stage, it will require prolonged practice of the yoga system. So what is it called? What is the term called? It is called sadhana siddh. And what did Dhritarashtra come to the Dhira stage? How did he come to the Dhira stage? By sadhana. How did he become a Dhira? You should be able to answer that. Yes, Darshil Prabhu?
Kripa, Prabhuji, Kripa.
Yes, Kripa Siddhi. So we see here, we are not discussing, so nothing is going to come out. So this Kripa was bestowed by Mahatma Vidur. He was not Nitya Siddh, neither he was Sadhana Siddh. So he had only one opportunity to receive the mercy of a sadhu. And he accepted that. In our case also, we will not be able to be Sadhana Siddh. Of course, at least I cannot say that I am Nitya Siddh. And the possibility of becoming a Sadhana Siddh is also very remote. Then what is the possibility left? It's only to achieve Kripa Siddhi. And where the Kripa is coming from? Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya. Karo Eida se. So it is by following the footsteps and the instructions of the spiritual master, one can make progression. And here the spiritual master for Dhritarashtra is Vidura. How it is so that Dhritarashtra was asked to leave home immediately, leave it. And he left. Personally, Guru Maharaj told me, personally. He said, when, one very, very long time back, when I had not even joined the temple, I met Maharaj with some of the IVF devotees. And Maharaj was saying that the Kripa, the mercy of the spiritual master is there for all like the sun. Like the sun shines in the sky, it gives light to everyone. But how many accept it, value it and receive it, to that extent they get benefit. There's no partiality by the spiritual master. But how many are willing to accept and value it, to that extent he gets the benefit. And here, Dhritarashtra, somehow by good providence, some good piety would be there in his previous life, that he accepted the advice of Mahatma Vidur. So far in his life, he never accepted. He always rejected. But somehow, now at the fag end of his life, he accepted the advice and he will get the benefit. Okay, I'll stop here. It is getting late. It is 9:40. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Very, very important discussion. I was hearing one Guru Maharaj lecture yesterday. Maharaj was saying how the enthusiasm to serve comes. Some people are very enthusiastic to serve the Supreme Lord, to serve, perform devotional service, while others are not. Where is the difference? Why there is the difference? The difference is because of their approach, their attitude, and their sadhana. To the extent with sincerity one performs sadhana, to that extent he will have enthusiasm. He will have the aspiration to serve. And if one is weak in sadhana, then even opportunities come, he will not be interested. I gave all of you yesterday a request that please let me know how many books, when and where to send. I received one reply from very sincere one of our devotees, Pranab Prabhu. He gave me 20 cartons of Bengali Gita to be shipped immediately. Others are still thinking it is not for me. हाँ, अब तो हर साल प्रभु जी बोलेंगे, हर साल गीता मैराथन आएगी and every year he is going to speak. It is not that I am speaking, that I want some benefit. It is because Guru Maharaj is speaking. It is because Srila Prabhupada is speaking. It is because Krishna is speaking. How much we are willing to accept? To that extent, the benefit or the advantage will be there in our heart. Why we want to remain fourth class? Why not become first class? In any case, we have to do it now. In any case, we will have to do it. Why not become first class? Why remain fourth class? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaur